So this video is number 9 in my Sabbath series. If you haven't seen the previous videos, it'd really be good to go back and look at those to understand where I'm coming from and what brings us to this point. Some of this will be recap from some of those videos, but I want to do a special video just on the new moon day. What is it and how does that affect us? First verse I want to go into as a recap is Colossians 2:16-17. It says, "Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink, or in respect of an holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath days, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ." The first thing that we need to understand is that this says it is a shadow of things to come. That means that it's not anything to do in the past, it's not anything in their present time when this verse is being said, and it's not something that's going to be in heaven. And we know it's not in heaven because no man judges us in heaven. We've already been judged, and that's why we're there. So, the new moon will be kept by all of God's children before Jesus comes the second time. So, the first place that you see the new moon day in the creation account, you'll find in Genesis 2:2, it says, "And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made." Now, the moon wasn't created on the fourth day. Just go to the Genesis account, Genesis 1, 14-17, I believe it is. Just read it all. The moon never fits any of the criteria for that. So when we go to Genesis 2 and it says, "And on the seventh day God ended his work," it just said that God was working on the seventh day and then he stopped. So that's obviously not the Sabbath day because we know that no work was done on the Sabbath day. There was nothing that happened on the Sabbath day. He only blessed and created. He didn't have any work that he was doing on that day. So that shows that there's two different counts going on. And the moon was created when God said, "Let there be light." You can look at my creation account video. You can look at the new uh, Feast of Trumpets, that's the one, video. Both of those will explain clearly that the moon was created at that time. So let me just explain this a little bit more clearly for anybody who might be stumbling over this a little bit. This is what God's calendar looks like from the Bible. You have the new moon day, and it sets the Sabbath for the month. And the Sabbath is always the eighth day of the month. Even though I wrote seventh day Sabbath here, it is the eighth day of the month because here's the seventh day of the month. Eighth day of the month, seventh day Sabbath. And then you have 6 more working days, Sabbath, 6 more working days, 6 more working days. So the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th are your Sabbath days for the month. The new moon is not your regular Sabbath. It's still a rest from all secular labor, but it's not a rest from working for God. So if we take a look at the Bible verse and it says, "And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested the seventh day from all the works which he had made." So it says that he ended his work which he had made. So did he finish working on this day or did he rest this day is the question. I believe that he ended his work on the 6th day of the work week, which was the 7th day of the month. And that is what the Bible verse is explaining. And then when you go to verse 3, it says, "And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he had rested from all his work which he had created and made." So he'd rested from all the work which he had created and made. These Bible verses are showing two different counts going on here. And this is what it is. Now, in simple terms, so that somebody might understand this, if my friend Bob says, "Hey, he called me on Sunday," he says, let's just pretend that this is a Gregorian calendar. It's not, right? I could say if he said he was going to call me on the first day of the work week. So let's pretend it's Sunday for people because it's hard to rationalize the two calendars. I know because your brain is stuck on it and it's hard to realize God's calendar and understand it. If he says on this day, the first day of the week, of the work week, right? If he says, "I'm going to call you on Friday when I'm done work," right? So which is would be it's not, but we'll just say that it's this day of the week. If he's going to call me at the end of his work on that day, and then he calls me, and I'm like, "Hey, you finished early. I didn't expect you to call until after 5 o'clock." I'm like, "What time did you finish?" And he tells me, "I finished working on Saturday, or the seventh day. I finished working on the seventh day, or I finished working on Saturday." I'd be like, "Dude, It's not even that day yet. It's still the day before. It's the sixth day of the work week, or what most people would consider like Friday, even though it's not Friday, just for an example, because you just, it's hard to get that Gregorian calendar out of your head, and you have to look at it in light of God's calendar. So right now, this could be a Thursday, which would mean that this would be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's how God's calendar works. It's set to keep man free, that he can never be enslaved to mankind. So, what is it with the new moon day? How do we keep it in relation to the Sabbath? What does it actually show and how does it work? Well, every month is started by a new moon. So at the conjunction of the moon, that is the start. And whenever the daytime comes to you after that, that is the start of your day. And then it'll get within a 24-hour period, everyone on earth will have kept the Sabbath day. And what that does is that's the first day of the month. And it's not counted in the commandment because when you look at the commandment to keep the Sabbath, it says 6 days thou shalt labor. But the new moon day is not a work day. And we're going to go into that. And that's why when you start your count, the new moon is on the first day, and it's on the 8th day of the month is your first Sabbath, which previous to that was 6 working days, Sabbath, 6 working days, Sabbath, 6 working days, Sabbath, 6 working days, Sabbath, and then you'll have a new moon which will reset the Sabbath. And the Sabbath doesn't just move from one day to the next always, right? It won't be like Tuesday this month, Wednesday next month. The moon is set in such a way that sometimes it skips a day, and that is called the mean day. And I'm going to do a separate video on that, and that'll be the next one in this series, I believe. That's my plan anyway. So what I was just trying to explain about the new moon sometimes not always falling consistently is you can see this here. So here you have, this is this year, so the 1st of May, that's today when I'm actually making this video, is a new moon day, and this sets the Sabbath. So this is really neat. So you have new moon day, and then you can see that there's 6 working days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there's a Sabbath, 6 days Sabbath, 6 days Sabbath, 6 days Sabbath. But here is something interesting. This 30th day is called the mean day. And then you'd have a new moon again, and then that would take you to 6 working days Sabbath. So something I want you to note here before I move on to show you that the next month is this is a Gregorian calendar that all the world follows today. So Pope Gregory, I don't remember which one it was, I believe it was in the 1500s sometime, I don't know the exact day, he made this calendar. So he took a Roman calendar that was made up. The Roman calendar used to be an 8-day calendar. And then I think it was about 150 years before the Crucifixion, it was turned into a 7-day calendar. And then when we come down to the 1500s, like that still needed a lot of adjustment. Pope Gregory made this calendar, and it's fairly accurate. We have a leap day every couple of years. As we all know, we all go through that leap day, and we all probably know somebody was born on that leap day, and they're a whole lot younger than what they look. But every 400 and some years, you have to take out a bunch of days in order to make this solar calendar work. The neat thing with God's calendar is it works continually for eternity. It is self-adjusting all the time and never needs any man-made interference in it. It will always readjust itself because it's a lunar and a solar calendar at the same time, and they both jive together, and it works out perfectly. And roughly every 19 years, it comes to almost the same point of what it was. Uh, the lunar cycle almost meshes up again with the solar cycle, but over the course of eternity, it'll always be perfect. And my mouse might have stopped moving and my hands kept on going, which is kind of funny. But you didn't see that, but that's okay. So let me go now. So let's just look at this again. So we had the Sabbath was on Sunday here, but now it's going to skip over and it's going to be Tuesday here is when the new moon comes. So now let's look at the next calendar. And you see that this is a Sabbath, so you would have 6 working days Sabbath, because we know that the new moon was right here on the last calendar, right? And you have 6 working day Sabbath, 6 working day Sabbath, 6 working day Sabbath. But here, the new moon only jumps ahead 1 day. It doesn't do 2 days. And every so often it does it skips a day, but quite frequently it's like this as well. So this is what's really interesting, is that man can't regulate God's calendar. God's like, hey, you know what? I want you to be free. No man's going to be able to regulate you unless they're like really thinking hard about how this is. Even myself, I use a calendar app. You can go outside and you can figure it out just using your hands to know and understand when the new moon was and is going to be. But it's just easier with an app, although everybody should learn how to do it the other way. So something to see if you're looking at the new moon is when you're going through it, you can see that there's greater sacrifices on the new moon day than on a regular Sabbath day. So not only do you have like your regular sacrifices that you do for the day, but then you have different sacrifices as well. What I believe, and I don't have a thus saith the Lord for this, so I am speculating, and I'm just going to say, and you'll just have to listen. The rest of the talk will be all Bible verses. Well, this will still be Bible verses too. But God says that the greatest is a servant. When Jesus came, he came as a servant, but he was also Lord of the Sabbath. So Matthew 12, verse 8, it says, for the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath day. And then we read, though, in Mark 10, verse 44, it says, and whosoever you will be the chiefest shall be the servant of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life a ransom for many. So on the Sabbath day, God sets aside his time for us to spend with us. We know that we'll be spending eternity with Jesus every Sabbath day. Because the Bible tells us in Isaiah 66:23, and it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, right? So every new moon we gather, and from one Sabbath to another shall all flesh come and worship before me, saith the Lord. So we know that every Sabbath day, God comes and he worships with us. But he's also worshiping with us on the new moon. But there's a little bit difference with the new moon day. The new moon day was not a work for you day, but it was a day where you worked for God. So now God comes and he meets with us every Sabbath day to show that, he's he's the chiefest among us, right? He's the one, he comes and he shows that there's, I don't want to say an equality, but that he's not ruling over us, that he's choosing to be a servant to us that day. And then on the new moon day, it kind of works in reverse, where we come to worship before God. But this is a day where we come and we do work for God. This is not a day where we can do any work for ourselves. We have to set it aside. And people might say, well, new moons and Sabbaths, we have to work. God says, I'm your provider. You don't need to worry. Don't work those days, and I will bless you. You'll have what you need, not always necessarily what you want. So let's go into some of the Bible verses that talk about not working on the new moon day. In Ezekiel 46, verse 1, it says, thus saith the Lord God, the gate of the inner court looketh towards east, and shall be shut 6 working days. But on the Sabbath it shall be opened, and on the day of the new moon it shall be opened. So here, this Bible verse says specifically that on the working days, the gate to the inner court was to be closed, which meant that nothing that would defile the solemnity of that day, of either the Sabbath day or the new moon day, was allowed to be entered into the court area. In Amos 8, verse 5, it says, when will the new moon be gone, that we may sell corn, and the Sabbath, that we may set forth wheat? So it's kind of putting both of these together, the Sabbath and the new moon. It says specifically, you cannot sell corn, right? And then it says the Sabbath, you can't set forth wheat. But we know on the Sabbath, you're not allowed to be selling stuff either. So I believe that these are both saying on both of these days, we can't do these things. I have to just say that. It's not 100% specific. These are not working days where we are able to do anything for gain for ourselves. Selling corns to make money for yourself. Planting is to bring in provisions for yourself. But we know that it's a day where we're supposed to come and we're supposed to worship God together. But the new moon, you can do some work and it's for God. And this is where we become like a servant to God. In Exodus 40, verse 2, it says, and on the first day of the month shalt thou set up a tabernacle of the tent of congregation. So we can see here right? Anytime it says first day of the month, that is always a new moon day. So they were to set up the tent of the congregation. And then they did it on the new moon day. So work on the church was allowed to be done. In Numbers 1, verse 18, it says, "And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they did declare the pedigrees of all their families by the house of their fathers according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward by their polls. As the Lord commanded Moses, so we numbered them in the wilderness of Sinai." So here we see that, there's business affairs going on. If you're going to have a board meeting, you're going to have a church meeting or something like that where you come, and all those meetings, instead of being done on the Sabbath day, should be done on the new moon day. That's when that's set aside for, right? All the affairs of the church that don't have anything to do with the building up of learning of God, right? Um, the Sabbath, not doing your own works. It was a day to learn of God. It was a day of just spending communion with God and not necessarily setting forth all the businesses that's supposed to be done. That's what the new moon day was for. In Deuteronomy 1, verse 3, it says, "And it came to pass in the 40th year, and in the 11th month, on the first day of the month, that Moses spake unto the children of Israel according to all that the Lord had given him in the commandment unto them." So here we see Moses came and he's teaching them, he's preaching to them. And we see this in a second spot. In Nehemiah 8, verse 2, it says, "And Ezra the priest brought the law before the congregation, both of men and of women, and all that could hear with understanding upon the first day of the seventh month." So we hear special instructions are given to the people of God. So we find that, it's a day where we come together, it's a day where we worship God, right? So there's still like a sermon or something going on because you're learning. You're still learning. There's still a lot of things that are very much like the Sabbath, but it's not a Sabbath day. In Ezra 7, verse 9, it says, "For upon the first day of the first month began he to go up from Babylon, and on the first day of the fifth month came he to Jerusalem according to the good hand of God upon him." So, is it okay to travel for God on that day? Yeah. Some people might be considering, I'm not sure. Maybe people think about a Sabbath day journey and what they can do. You can't buy and sell, so therefore you shouldn't be getting gas, right? And some people are like, well, you just go to a machine, nobody's working. Well, people have to work because people are monitoring that all the time. They're monitoring your car, they're monitoring the gas, or somebody's still in the gas station. It's all set up. And you might think you're not causing anybody to work. You are. Don't go to the gas stations even if you are just using your card. So, but we see here that Ezra, right, he left and he began his journey to go to Jerusalem because that's where he's supposed to worship at the command of God. Something else that we see that happened very, very frequently on the first day of the month in various different months is God often spoke to many of the prophets on that day. So it would be, especially with Ezekiel, on the first day of the month, God came and talked to him many, many times. But there's one day in the year that we do not work for God on a new moon day. In Leviticus 23, verse 24, it says, "Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, In the seventh month, on the first day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial blowing of trumpets, and a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord." On that day is to give thanks for God for the creation week. It was a memorial of the creation week. So we take that. It's a memorial of God's law because the Bible tells us the moon was given to us for ordinances. It describes it as ordinances, and that's for laws. So you have the Sabbath day, which is a memorial of God's created works, where we stop and where we rest. And on this new moon day, it's a memorial of his law when he started the whole creation week and set in place his calendar and the Sabbath day. Now, these things make things beautiful. So, just kind of as a recap, on the new moon day, you don't do any work that is to benefit you. You can do work that benefits God. They'll teach people about God. They'll uplift God. If things need to be repaired on the church, that's the time to do it. People will often say, "Oh, we can't do any work on the Sabbath, and then we have all these days during the week, but everybody's working and nobody has any time for God." But God's like, "Hey, you know what? I give you a new moon day, one day a month. You can fix all these problems and you can do these things because the whole church is supposed to come together at that time, right? We've seen that when we go to heaven, all flesh will come and worship before him that day. It's a blessing. It's a great day. We come, we gather together, we worship the Lord, we start the day, we work for him, we do all the business that needs to be done. And then after that, then you have 6 working days and then a Sabbath, 6 working days and a Sabbath. It's beautiful. I pray that you might take this, look at this, consider this, understand that the Jewish economy has all the answers for a world in turmoil and trouble like our world is today. If we were to seek the old paths and follow the old ways that God has given to us in His Word, all the problems of the earth would just disappear and be over because it would mean repentance for the whole world across. The Bible says that that's not going to happen, but it does say that there's a people out there that will do this. What a blessed day that will be when we'll all be gathering together from one new moon to another and one Sabbath to another.
You're the Lord of all creation, God, you made